Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turf's Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone Show this evening.
All right, good afternoon, good morning, good night, wherever you are in this wonderful world, you're somewhere, and hope everybody's doing fine and safe and happy and not sick. And thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone Show. I'm Rob Starr along with Miss Tara Malali, and we're going to guide you through the show, and we appreciate that you're listening to us. And I just got the announcement today, just to let you know, if you care. If you don't, I'm just going to give it to you anyway. Nothing bad. Last year, FeedSpot rated globally all podcasts around the world and who is the best in the top 50 and so forth. We were actually number one last year, so we appreciate that a lot. I just got the ratings for this year. It isn't number one, but I'm not sad at all. We're number 6, and part of the reason is because they'd like to see some more PR going out and some websites and some other things that we could do. But they said we're still there, and being still number 6 in the world is better than being number 200 in the world. But we're happy about that, and it's only due to listeners like you. We have over 327 followers, so we're very happy at that. We have over 86,000 live listeners for the affiliates, and we have an Apple rating. I think their highest score is 5/5, and that's where we are. Even some of the ones before us, the 1 through 5, they don't have the same numbers that we do, but we're very happy for them. Competition is great, and they're all doing a service that's important to you, the listening audience. So for that, I applaud them. And some of them are, who are in that total list, they're friends of ours, and I appreciate what they do, and they appreciate what we do, and we share a lot of things together. And so I just want to give them a shout out that I appreciate what they do, and my team here. So partly because of Tara and Chris Austin, and not previously to Chris Davey, and very excited about working with a bunch of good professionals and a good team. So congratulations, teams. Thank you very much, listeners, for that. And I'll introduce Miss Chris Austin. Chris, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing okay. How are y'all?
Doing good. And Miss Tara Malali?
Sounds like we got some PR we need to do. I can't wait. Happens to be something I kind of do sometimes.
We'll get with our IT people and get that started immediately, because they wanted to see more banners on the internet and all this other thing. So we're going to start doing that. I'm very happy though the way we did it, because it's really got us here through word of mouth and connections. And I've been speaking to a lot of people. I was just talking to Tara earlier. I had talked to a lady named Heather Engel, and she's at ACWA, which is the Association of Water Agencies, California. And everybody knows everybody. She used to actually work with Tara, but that's what you learn. You're in the business. You know everybody. You get to quickly know over the years who's good, who's not good, where to contact, and it's awful great. So I'm very honored again to work with a great team, and I'm honored to have a listening audience like you guys. So thank you very much. Anyway, Ms. Austin, what's going on? There's so much happening up in this press release is going crazy. What's happening?
Oh yeah, we're having some fun. Well, I guess the most notable thing today, well, there's two notable things, but the Bureau of Reclamation announced their water allocations for the Central Valley project. This is always a little bit of an exercise in I don't know what, I guess, because it's still early in the season, and how do you know what's going to be what? But they did announce their allocation, and most people are getting lots of water, except for the south of Delta contractors. And when south of Delta contractors in California water speak actually means Westlands Water District, which is the largest water district in California. Well, it competes with IID as to who's the largest, but they are also the largest south of Delta contractor in the mix. And I mean, Westlands is kind of an interesting water district. They used to be very combative, and I don't know. I used to describe them as sort of like the Oakland Raiders. They're kind of playing. Looks like they're kind of playing dirty, and you're not sure if they're really what's going on there. But they had a changeover in management a few years ago, and the tone coming out of Westland's Water District is very much different. I think they're much more toned down. I think they're trying to be more collaborative with people. So they're kind of not the same anymore. But yeah, so they're going to get only 15% of their total. And of course, they're not happy about that.
I can't imagine they would be.
Yeah, and they're thankful for the Trump administration's help in securing more water. But I think that the fact is it's still kind of early, and the hydrology is not great. We have snow in the mountains. We have some, but it's not tracking it's not tracking in huge amounts. And a very interesting story. This last storm that blew through, it was a warm storm, so it mainly rained on the snowpack. And an interesting story in the Daily Digest today, reported by an outlet called SF Gate, San Francisco, and they said that that the rain filled into the snowpack and froze, so it actually improved the state water, the snow water equivalent, or how much water is in the snow when you melt it down. But the plots and the statistics don't really bear that out. So I thought that was kind of interesting, especially they quoted the guy from the Sierra Snow Lab, and it's just kind of flatlined is what's happened. It didn't melt any, but it didn't gain anything. And we're in a situation now where we have the snowpack is 49% in the northern Sierra, and it's 92% in the southern Sierra. So there's more snow in the southern Sierra, and while that's great and everything, there's not really a lot of reservoirs in that area to catch it. It's hard to develop that water because the way the geography is there. Where all the reservoirs are up north, and up north that hydrology is only 49% of average. So it's not looking like great hydrology this year, but a lot can change. It's just the end of February, but I don't believe we have any large storms in sight. Little something might blow through this weekend, but we'll have to wait and see. If we get a March miracle or an awesome April, it could happen, but I think reclamation is being very cautious this time while we see what happens with this hydrology.
Don't they say, I was reading that the western U.S. is about to see historic winter weather? But that's going to be on the hot side. It's going to be, it's going to be warm in the 90s. I mean, it's going to be 90 here tomorrow where I am. Outside Phoenix. Yeah. And it's been beautiful. I mean, it's nice. But because last week we were down to 40-something degrees at night. big swing. But,
so there'll be, that's going to melt up the snow a bit too. So that doesn't help. That doesn't help us very much when it gets warm like this. They call this it's a snow eater heat wave. It's not. It's not like what we think of a summer heat wave, but it's warm enough to make real changes in the snowpack and start it melting off. So, warm weather ahead. We all like that, but it's not good this time of year for our snowpack.
Well, I see that rain in Redding, California, was setting a record.
Oh yeah. Oh, we had a lot of rain. We sure did, and put a lot of that flowed a lot of water into Shasta Reservoir, but it's not amazingly big. If you look at I put the graph in. I mean, it's above average. I will say that, but it's not greatly above average. And they have to, keep space in that reservoir right now for flood control. So we'll see how much that, affects how much they can store. So,
and this is like, it's me, so I always do a little departure, right? I'm really curious about what's happening with Potter Valley Dam and the Potter Valley Project and all of that stuff. That's like, it's kind of like, ooh, what's going on? Because there's so many different parties that are involved, all the way from Secretary Brooke Rollins down to, kind of what's happening with this the eel group, and also you have the Round Valley Tribe and like what's happening with Sonoma County Water Agency. And then they never, they kind of only briefly ever mention like Lake Pillsbury, which is this whole group of, it's this whole community that's been built up around this lake that if this happens, all of that just goes away. And nobody really talks about that impact ever. They're just like, oh, it's going to be bad for ag if we get rid of the dam. But it's also like, there's the tool deer. There's like all these other elements that kind of people don't really talk about. And so I'm curious about what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I have to say I haven't seen much in the news about the Potter Valley Project recently. Right? There was something out today just kind of talking about the situation in general. And there were some articles a few months ago. The people in Lake County have made their unhappiness with this idea of Lake Pillsbury going away. They have, registered their opposition. And actually, I do believe it was the Lake County supervisors that sent a letter to the Bureau of Reclamation or the Trump administration about it. There were two letters sent. The first one they sent to the Bureau of Reclamation, 4 or 5 months ago, and the Bureau of Reclamation said, yeah, we're not interested. And then someone sent a letter to Brooke Rollins, and she got interested. And so then there was the big brouhaha over that. I haven't really heard what's going to happen or how the Trump administration is going to intervene in this. And if anyone can guess, I think if anyone can guess, anything could happen.
We should get her on the show.
Yeah, we should I would love to get Secretary Brooke Rollins on this show. She does a lot in water, and she's got a very clear voice. That, Rob, that's your new task. Go for it.
Okay, we'll get together on that, and then put some bullet points together, and I'll get the call.
Absolutely.
I can get Lee Goldman. Sorry, go ahead.
The other big thing going on is that we have this appeals process on the Delta Conveyance Project going on. This is kind of one of those, I don't know how to explain this process. This is kind of like a permit, not really a permit, but sort of like a permit, I guess, that's being contested. Basically, the Department of Water Resources has said that the Delta Conveyance Project is consistent with this document called the Delta Plan, which covers the Delta and these types of projects that might occur within it. And so, of course, those that are against the Tunnel have appealed this, and it's going to be a 2-day hearing. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. The California water fix, which was, I don't know how many years ago that was.
Oh yeah, that was at least 7, right? 7 years ago, maybe 8.
Yeah, it was right before Newsom came in, I think.
Mm-hmm. It was, because Newsom came in and he basically killed it.
Yeah, well, he downsized it to the one.
Yeah.
But the twin tunnels had been certified to go, that they were consistent with the Delta plan, and it got contested. And the council actually upheld the appeal and sent the Department of Water Resources back to, cure the problems that it had. And I think they were getting ready to resubmit, or they might have already resubmitted. And then Newsom came in. Newsom was inaugurated, and they rescinded all of that.
And we're just in time to do the same thing again. So it's super exciting.
Well, it's going to be really interesting because it can only be appealed on some very narrow ground, that it is not consistent with the Delta plan. It's not that there's not a lot of discretion here with the council. The council it just can't say, well, we don't like the project, so you can't do it. They don't have the right to say that. They have to, they can only rule in this very narrow way, which is this consistent with the plan or not? And since it was found not to be consistent before, I wouldn't necessarily consider it a slam dunk that that's the way it's going to work out now. But it will be interesting to see. One of the reasons that they cited with the California water fix is the lack of coordination and outreach with the Delta community. So when they started this process, they actually had a stakeholder engagement committee of like 20 or 25 people that were selected to be from those throughout the Delta and a few other places. And they really looked at all of these plans, all of the designs and things. The idea basically was, well, you're going to sit on this committee. That doesn't mean that you support the project, but if the project were to be built, now here's where you can negotiate the best of what's going to happen to you, right? It was that kind of thing. And so they actually had quite a bit of input into where the facilities would go and how the project would be constructed. That did not, of course, in any way make them support the project, but it is a way that they were brought into the process to try to minimize the impact on the community. It's a 10-year construction project. It's the impacts are going to be big on the people that live in the Delta. But if you're going to build this project, that's what you got to deal with.
Well, as they say, anything in the water business flows very slowly. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So what's this thing about?
It's going to be real interesting to see how this plays out. I mean, there's so many things that are coming and culminating, and I kind of think that if the Delta Conveyance Project doesn't make it through this round of permits, then that casts a real doubt on whether it's even ever going to be built. I mean, I've heard the Metropolitan chairman of the board basically say, if this isn't done by the time Newsom leaves office, it's probably not going to happen.
Done. Nope, I agree.
Yeah,
and that's what I was saying is it because you have then a completely new vision, as you would sort of want from a new governor, is a potentially different vision, which is why kind of you're looking at that to really expand things or change things or improve things. Hopefully improve things. It's either it just that's what Gavin Newsom did when he came in, and he's like, this isn't going to work. We're going to do this totally different thing. So if somebody else came in and had a different perspective, likely they would not continue Gavin Newsom's idea for what this is going to look like, which means you start over again, and then you have another 12 years to try and get this done. And clearly, it's not doable in that time frame.
No,
no, and I think that also the public and Metropolitan is getting tired of sort of the machinations that just kind of keep going on and on with this project. And I think, people are sort of getting to the point of, piss or get off the pot. Either we're going to do this or we're not, because if it doesn't happen, then people, Metropolitan's going to have to decide then what else are they going to do? Because imported water is very important to Southern California. I think it's kind of critical, to be honest. I don't see how Southern California could live without it. And if it's not coming from the Colorado River, it's got to come from somewhere. But no matter, it's like Metropolitan can't keep waiting and funding millions of dollars in planning costs if this project is not going to come to fruition. At some point, they got to move forward. And I think they're prepared to do that. They have this Camp 4 process, which they're kind of looking at all their different options for water management in Southern California. So, I think it's pretty much it happens this year, or it's probably not going to happen at all.
Well, they're still funding the train to nowhere, and that's a big expense for God knows how many years we've been doing it. And then I read this morning about Newsom unveils some California water plan for 2028 to boost capture and storage and conservation. Where are they getting the money?
Well, now this is interesting. This came from a bill that was put forward by State Senator Ana Caballero. I think she's from the Central Valley somewhere. And she actually proposed this legislation, which is basically to change the California water plan to set targets for creating new water or, easing water situations. And she got it passed through both houses, and it went to Governor Newsom, and he vetoed it, he said, for budget consideration. So she retooled it, and she took it back, and, it went through, cleared both houses again, and now it's become law. But the guy from DWR that's implementing this, so he has said that, that they don't have the funding to do everything that's mandated in this legislation. So we'll see what happens. But it's not that they're going to go and build these desalination plants or anything. It's at least not at this point. They're going to go region by region through the state and figure out who needs more water and how much, and come up with a target watershed by watershed for solving water problems. We'll see how that goes. It's interesting. Some people were telling the Water Commission that they're probably not, that though all those needs, when they add them up, are probably not going to come to 9 million acre feet. No. So,
do you think
we'll see.
Loaded question, but do you think Newsom signed that only for political reasons? Because he's running for other offices, wants to show he's involved. But like you said, the money, I worry about the money, about doing it. Can they do it all? And look at all, and then if they even start it and goes off for a couple of years, look at the money it's going to cost. And then if they stop it, just like we're talking about the other thing, it's all wasted money.
Well, but they're not. They're not talking about constructing anything. This is a planning process.
No, I understand. But they got to have people go out and do investigations, write a report. That costs money and time. It's just money.
Yeah, well, but I mean, I don't know why he signed it. I don't, to be honest. This is something that passed both houses, and while it did have some opposition, not a lot. So I mean, why not sign it? It's sort of it's sort of positioning this California water plan to try and look ahead at some of these issues. What's interesting is that he sort of claimed it as his own. If you ask me about the political purposes, I would say, well, it's kind of that. Yeah. Although someone else commented to me about this, and I have to say, I've been doing this now for, almost 20 years, 17, 18 years. Way back in the Obama administration, press releases came out, Bureau of Reclamation raises Central Valley project allocation. Bureau of Reclamation awards funding to, such and such project. Now, and it started in Trump's first administration, and Biden continued it, and it continues to this day. Everything now is stamped by the administration. Trump administration releases Central Valley project allocation. Yeah. Trump funds this, but Biden did it too. But it's like it leads you to believe that they're right there in the mess of it, and I'm not necessarily sure they are. So
that's understanding. Well, we're coming up on our commercial break, Chris, and we appreciate all the news that you bring to us every single week. And for our listeners, if you haven't done it or haven't listened to it, go to www.mavensnotebook.com, and you'll see what Chris is all about, and you'll get the first information on water before you read it somewhere else. This lady, I say it every show, and I'll keep saying it, I don't know how she gets it all done. She must be up for 20 hours a day just typing, and then the rest of the time she's got to go get all the information. So I don't know how she does it all. She's an amazing woman. But you can go there and get it downloaded, be a subscription for it. Doesn't cost you anything, and it's there on your PC or your phone every single day. You can also become a sponsor if you'd like, and that would be appreciated as well. So, Chris, thank you very much for all the good news and bad news that you bring us, but we need to hear all that and what's going on. So we'll talk to you next week. You have a great week.
All right. You too. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. All right, we're going to take a little break and be back with our featured guest. It's going to be a very interesting conversation, very good one. I'm very excited to have this next person on. And we'll be back in just a minute. Going to have a couple words from our sponsors, and we'll be back shortly.
KCAA. Water is one of the biggest expenses for communities, HOAs, universities, golf courses, and resorts. So keeping those costs under control, especially when rates are increasing while water supplies are being reduced, are often essential to a customer's survival. Managing water requires multiple skills, which is why it's been complicated and difficult until now. AquaTrack brings multiple skills and technologies together to help large system users conserve outdoor water and improve the health of their landscapes. AquaTrack's professionals are certified landscape water managers and certified landscape irrigation auditors. The company offers audit services, upgrade advice, technical expertise, and water use monitoring. We already manage irrigation water for the largest homeowner associations in Arizona, and we're prepared to bring our knowledge and experience to help others, including landscapers and designers. Give us a call and hear how AquaTrack saved one HOA some 430 million gallons of water and $200,000 in annual water expenses. AquaTrack is Arizona-based, and you can reach us at 623-594-8689. That's 623-594-8689.
SiteOne is proud to announce products that give hardscape professionals the power to expand their business without the need for extra training or subcontractors. Chances are your team is trained to install a professional paver patio, a process that from the bottom up goes from soil subgrade to geotextile fabric to aggregate to bedding sand to the paver product. Well, now you can install premium stone flooring using the same process with the Solstice Stone Right collection, thanks to the product's consistent thickness. As you can see, the same layers are involved, which means you can offer your customers a huge variety of beautiful stone surfaces that you can easily install. Let's look at the process for installing our synthetic turf. Still the same layers. So now, with the same crew, you're not limited to installing pavers only. You can own the whole yard with stone flooring and synthetic turf, giving you the power to expand projects and add new customers without the need to subcontract or retrain. It's just another way SiteOne helps to make growing your business a little easier.
All right, welcome back to the second half of Water Zone. Again, thanks for tuning in to us, and we appreciate all our listeners. As I said earlier in the show, we're very excited about that next award that we just received. So thank you very much. We do appreciate it. Anyway, I'm very, very excited to talk about our next guest, and her name is Dr. Robin Grimm, and she is president and CEO of the California Water Data Consortium. Her career focuses on bringing diverse perspectives and institutions together to fill critical research, decision support, and other information gaps to enable more sustainable land and water management practices across the western United States. Before joining the California Water Data Consortium, Robert served as Senior Director of Applied Research and Innovation for Climate Resilient Water Systems, an environmental defense fund, which helped lead the OpenET Consortium, working with partners at NASA, the Desert Research Institute, Google Earth Engine, and a dozen other organizations. And she is a very smart lady, and hopefully we'll get a lot out of the conversation. She holds a PhD in hydrologic sciences from the University of California, Davis. Excuse me. So I'd like to introduce Ms. Robin Grimm, actually Ms. Dr. Robin Grimm.
Yeah, hi. Hopefully I'm coming through. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm going to let Robin and you talk with Sarah for a moment. Sarah,
I'm good.
trying to clear my throat here.
I know. We've got a Miss Doctor. We got like a whole situation. Anyways, so Dr. Grimm, can you please tell me a little bit more about the California Data Consortium and what it does kind of in this data water management place? It's so funny because I actually was involved in the California Data Collaborative back when it was first being created by USC. So I'm curious to hear what you do and how that may be different and all of that stuff.
Yeah, sure. So the California Water Data Consortium is a neutral nonprofit convener, and we're really focused on improving how California manages and uses its water data. So I think, important to note that we don't collect or host data ourselves, and instead we really work to make the vast amount of data that is already being collected more usable, accessible, and impactful. And what this really translates to for us are four main focus areas as an organization. So the first of those is that we really work to strengthen a community of practice around the stewardship of data for water management in California. So that looks like bringing together state agencies, local water managers, NGOs, technologists, and a host of other perspectives around trusted tables.
You've been muted. To unmute yourself, press *6.
We really work to continue to communicate the value proposition for data and information systems, or what we sometimes refer to as data infrastructure. People kind of think about the importance of our physical infrastructure, our pipes and our canals in delivering water. Our data infrastructure is really critical for delivering information. Just like the pipes and pumps that we need to maintain, our data and information systems also really require ongoing investment. They don't maintain themselves. And so we work to kind of get stories out there about how data is being put to really good use and what the needs are around it, so that doesn't become an afterthought. Third, we conduct research and co-develop policy recommendations on how the state, both at the agency level, but also kind of as Californians more broadly, can work together to continue to modernize our data infrastructure and support better stewardship of our water, land, ecosystems, communities, et cetera. And then finally, our fourth area of focus is that we work to develop best practices and really demonstrate innovative uses of data take these pilots or these specific examples to showcase how better integration of data, interoperable data, things like that, better processes and coordination can really kind of unlock more strategic and precise decision making and better outcomes on the ground.
So you said you don't collect data specifically. I know there's questions. I often go off script like a little bit just to kind of build to what. So if you don't collect data specifically, how do you secure the data? How do you what informs your data process?
Well, so this is a distinction, I think, between us and the collaborative that we're more familiar with, which is that we are not ourselves on behalf of others managing or hosting data. We really work at this kind of higher level scale to convene folks around the stewardship of the state writ large kind of water data infrastructure. And so that looks like, kind of research around best practices and policy needs. Again, serving as a convener for conversations to happen around the state's data infrastructure. I can get into some more specific examples as we go through the question.
That would be super helpful.
Go
for it.
Yeah. But we are not, we are not ourselves kind of a platform for the sharing and dissemination of data. That's not the work that we do. So, I guess, I can go into kind of, what we do to help facilitate collaboration, between those parties that I mentioned. I kind of like to draw an analogy, like if you're thinking about the type of work we do, if you think about sort of like the profile image of an iceberg, right, where the portion that you tend to see above the waterline is, the visible portion, but that whole structure is really supported by something much larger that lives kind of underneath the surface, under the water surface. And I alluded to this already a little bit in my first answer, but I think, when people think about water infrastructure, even data, sometimes they tend to think about those pieces that are really easy to see, like a dashboard or
like numbers or like whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But like that kind of iceberg image that I drew, a lot of what keeps our water systems, our data systems, is kind of this invisible stuff like governance systems and shared standards, data management practices, workforce capacity, right? Sort of the trust building and collaboration pieces. So the California Water Data Consortium really kind of works alongside a host of other organizations that all exist to try and kind of strengthen those types of unseen foundations that make our water system and our data system work. So
that makes total
really
sense.
Crazy.
Like if we can't even agree on measurements, then like how are we providing the same information?
Right. Yeah. So, like we host roundtables, working groups, regional conversations. That's one example. And I'm actually really excited because we've got an upcoming Proposition 4 recommendations report that we're going to be releasing in a few weeks, which really reflects a good example of that type of work where we hosted a major convening last summer and then ongoing conversations with water leaders about how to leverage data to maximize the impact of the recently passed climate bonds and other similar public investments. So that's a good example, I think, of the type of work that we're doing.
Well, I'd love to get a sneak peek of that. Prop 4 money is very interesting to me, working for a water district who's looking at Prop 4 money.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine. And just in case listeners need some quick context, California voters approved Proposition 4. It was a $10 billion climate bond in 2024, and about $3.8 billion of that is dedicated to water resilience, so things like safe drinking water, flood protection, drought resilience, ecosystem restoration. So it's a significant amount of funding, but it's also a finite amount of funding. And so, how we structure and implement those investments really matters. And data informs every stage of the bond's implementation, right? At the front end, it helps to plan and prioritize and ensure that dollars are really directed to the communities and challenges that need them most. During implementation, data helps managers track progress and identify problems and course adjust, right? It's that adaptive management piece. And then finally, at the back end, data is what allows us to evaluate outcomes, not just was a project built, was the money spent, but how well did it actually improve water supply reliability or ecosystem health or community resilience. And so, the incorporation of data and sort of thinking more proactively and strategically about how to integrate data and data systems into the implementation of this fund, it's not just about the state tracking the outlay of its investments, right? It's also really about enabling regions and communities to be better prepared and equipped with the information systems they need to manage the investments they're making and respond to drought and flooding and other challenges as they come up. And, you know, ultimately, it's really better data and information systems aren't just about improving accountability. They really enable kind of shared learning. And learning is how you stretch dollars further at the end of the day. And so for us, we have a host of recommendations that we're making. They center around a couple of different things. As a sneak peek into some of those, for example, we're advocating that there be some time spent and some support and resources given to the development of data management plans when there is, you know, relevant data being collected on water and on the sort of ecological status as investments are being made. So that's one example of the type of recommendation we're making. We're also recommending some resources be given and thought be given to regional coordination around sort of shared monitoring and planning and shared management of data for kind of broader regional water management goals. So there's a lot of emphasis being put right now into this sort of watershed resilience program, and we'd love to see, you know, data being integrated into that really proactively. Another example of a recommendation in there is that, you know, to the extent possible, it's difficult sometimes with bond funds, but to the extent possible to put some effort into workforce development around, you know, data science and data management capacity, both at the state level, but also within local agencies. There's a whole bunch of sort of new technologies that are rapidly, you know, coming onto the scene and being made available. And, you know, I think it's hard to keep up if we're not at the same time investing in our workforce and the ability to kind of manage data in that new sort of information ecosystem that's existing, that's always evolving. So those are some small examples. There's a much larger report coming, and I hope that some people his interest is piqued and they keep an eye out for it.
So, Doctor, where are the agencies and communities struggling most when it comes to using the data for climate resilience?
Yeah, I really appreciate the question because I think, you know, we do still have some fundamental monitoring gaps in our data systems for sure. So there's a need for investment in, you know, equipment and instrumentation and things like that. But I think, and I've spoken to this a little bit already, that often the larger barrier to really putting data to work are things like capacity and alignment and integration. And actually, somebody that I was in a meeting with recently said something insightful that I really wish I could claim was my own. But they said, you know, we're often drowning in data and starving for information. And I think, you know, that's kind of the crux of what we're trying to sort of address with a lot of the work that we do. And the reason that that's often the case is because data is really often collected or derived in inconsistent formats with different approaches and methodologies, stored across siloed systems, and governed under different standards. And that makes integration really difficult. It adds cost and friction related to coordination and modeling together across boundaries really hard. And then in some cases, it erodes trust in information fundamentally, which all in turn kind of really slows down decision-making, adds a lot of transactional costs to decision-making. I think, you know, in water policy, people often appear to kind of disagree about the solutions or about values, but I think sometimes the deeper issue is that there's just not a common understanding about the underlying facts. And when we invest in open, transparent, and high-quality data and in good data governance and sort of communication pathways around that, we really do create more of a shared foundation for decision-making. It's not the be-all, end-all. There's a lot else that goes into it, right? But it's a really critical piece.
Right.
And climate adaptation is so complicated. It requires collaboration across so many different jurisdictions and sectors and communities. And that's really only possible if people can trust the information that's guiding the decisions. I think another challenge is the capacity issue that I kind of spoke to, right? State agencies often lack the staffing to modernize their publication pipelines and get data posted to the state data portals in a really timely manner, or to manage the huge influx of data that's coming from grantees in some cases at the challenging and often burdensome reporting requirements that are born out of disparate and long calcified regulatory programs. And that can really add to a sense of data fatigue rather than a sense of sort of how do we, apply this data for really neat purposes, right? And I think the solution to all of that isn't just like, it doesn't come in a neat package, right? I think, as I mentioned, technology is going to play a role, but there's also we also likely require some policy reforms, workforce investments, more support for regional coordination. And I think, we're really structured fundamentally in how we can fund those types of efforts, because you have these huge investments, influxes of cash that come in through things like bonds, Proposition 4, that tend to be really designed towards capital investment, the physical infrastructure pieces, and they don't tend to fund at the same scale all of those enabling conditions that really then kind of make that infrastructure effective, right? The coordination and governance, facilitation, data systems piece we're talking about here. And so, I think all of those things amount to challenges that folks face, both the local and state scale, and really getting to a place where data is sort of realizing its full potential in terms of meeting some of our climate resilience challenges.
Well, sticking with the data and technology portion of this, can you share examples of any local or regional tools that help communities make better water management decisions? And just to throw in one little adding to that, do you see AI is going to be a big player into this?
Yeah, I feel like it's impossible to have a data conversation without AI anymore, which is
right.
Fine and good. So to the first part of your question, I think the multi-benefit land repurposing efforts that are happening in the San Joaquin Valley have some really interesting kind of applications that folks could look to, where regional partners are coming together and developing some pretty neat spatial tools that are integrating groundwater, habitat, flood risk, and economic data, for example, to help communities really transparently and collaboratively evaluate trade-offs and kind of, set priorities for the projects that they want to invest in through that program. We are engaged in and work closely with a group of partners on the scaling and further refinement of a groundwater accounting tool. And that has been, a really instrumental tool for several of the GSAs that we've worked with across the state, and starting to kind of implement some of the policies that they've developed to, meet the challenge of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. So I think that's another really great example, and we're continuing to work on and kind of build more functionality into that tool with our partners. And then on kind of like the regional coordination side of things, I think the Russian River Regional Monitoring Program, I heard you all talking about Flower Valley earlier, so it's interesting that this is an example. But, I think that's a place where partners have really come together to align on and find cost efficiencies and working together on a monitoring program that sort of meets the needs of their science, their big science questions that they have for the watershed, and, reduces duplication and really kind of improves space and scale decision making. So I think that's a really great example of sort of pooling resources around the data needs of the region and working, collectively on kind of meeting those needs. So those are some that I would point to. AI is kind of, I think it's like there's so many potential dimensions to look at there. I think AI it's being used in a lot of interesting ways in terms of, like forecasting river flows, for example. There's a tool that I was just hearing about, Hydro Forecast, that I think is pretty fascinating in its use of AI. It's being tested and used in really specifically in the data space and sort of the QA/QC part of the process, right? Like looking for outliers or like flagging any inconsistencies in data. But I think in terms of kind of the application side of things, using AI for sort of modeling exercises and things like stream forecasts and stuff, it also points to, just underscores the importance of things like metadata and, investing in consistency and high quality data, because, machine learning has been around for a long time, right? AI is kind of like the next evolution. And just like for any modeling exercise, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So I think, and it's all the more important when it's really hard to sort of follow all the steps that are being taken to get from input to answer. which, for most folks is the case with AI, right? So I think there's that dimensionality to it. And then there's also just the water usage piece, right? Like, how much water does it take to run these massive data centers and things like that? And there's the policy questions around that. So, not a specific answer for you, but just a lot of things to kind of unpack and think about it.
Oh, absolutely. My role is in engineering and such. My big thing is I always tell my staff, in God we trust, all others bring good data, real data. You can't make a decision without that. And then, sometimes they're scared to take that first step. And I go, if you want to walk on water, you got to get out of the boat. You can't just sit. You can't sit there and do nothing. Well, I want to move down to ask you a question on community engagement. I know that Tara has some questions after that, but how can local communities and stakeholders participate in the consortium's initiative in any events? Can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a big part of what we do is try and invite broader community into this conversation around data. We love to expand that community. So we host, for one example, we host a Data for Lunch kind of webinar series that anybody can tune into, and there's information about that on our website. We're at cawaterdata.org, so hopefully people can go there and find out more about those. We're always kind of posting topic-specific workshops from time to time, and you can find out about those by enrolling in our newsletter. So that's another way to kind of hear about the events that we're planning and be a part of them if this topic is of interest to you. And of course, there's a contact us button on the page. Please reach out if you have any questions or there's anything you heard about that you want to learn more about. So those are a couple of different apps.
Good.
And speaking of stakeholder partnerships, what are your plans to expand partnerships with technology companies, universities, and other organizations to really enhance those water solutions that you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always kind of looking for, kind of new ways to think about those demonstration type pilots that we can partner with folks on around, again, like innovative uses of data. So, the groundwater accounting platform, we're working with EDF, we work with ESA as a consultant team, Olson, and the new kind of expansion of that work, we're also bringing in and getting to work with Genome and Sustainable Conservation. So that's, it's a great example of a project that really brings together public and private and we are partners with that. There's other needs across, there's other opportunities for good examples of putting data to good use that we'd be interested in partnering with folks on and working with exploring. You mentioned the Data Collaborative. We partnered with them last August, actually, on a work that was focused on improved indicators for drought risk and impact and thinking about indicators that are more regionally specific and sector specific around, understanding drought risk. And that's work that I think we'd be interested in continuing on, and that would involve likely partnerships with universities and technologists. And so we're always open and looking for things like that. And I think the way that we, kind of take steps in that direction is with these sort of hosted conversations where people can kind of come together and talk about these potential new solutions and partner.
It's been great. We got to turn ours over to NBC NewsHour, otherwise they'll squish us. And if it's their news hour, we got to give up that. But we thank you very much. We'd love to have you come back and talk more about some of the ongoing projects that you're involved with, and so it's very interesting. I love doing these because I learn a lot from people like you, and I admire you for what you do, and I appreciate that very much. Thanks for coming on to the Water Zone. We really appreciate it. We will contact you again because we do want to come back and finish some questions with you and give them more insight. Real quickly, where can they go to your website?
So we are at cawaterdata.org. Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. You have a good week.
You too. Bye.
Thanks. Okay, listeners, thank you for tuning in to us. We appreciate it. Don't forget, if you like green, you got to have blue because you can't get the green unless you water it. So anyway, thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us. Tara, thank you again, and we'll talk to you next week.
NBC News on KCA.